Hey my friends, welcome to my YouTube channel and to my studio. I am Shailene if we haven't met. So today I'm doing a really kind of simple video. It's just a sketchbook spread, kind of paint with me style video. I'm doing a lily pad water scene, kind of like going under a bridge, and a wisteria branch. So it's the season for wisterias, and it's the season for all things growing in life and beauty and abundance. So this was a really fun one to create. I hope you enjoy. Let's jump into it. So I'm going to get started by using some washi tape to kind of mask off this border for this painting I'm doing over here on the left side. I bought this pack of washi tape from, I think, Hobby Lobby probably 5 years ago. And I don't use it very often. I thought I would use it much more, but I just have so many rolls of washi tape. So it's always nice to find an opportunity to use them. Okay, so let's see here. Let's do some painting here. I'm going to use just like a really, really light kind of pinkish yellow mix. Just mixing a little bit of yellow, a little bit of pink, mostly water. And I'm going to paint this bridge using a larger brush here. Just kind of a watery mix. I'm going to switch to a larger brush here. Just trying to cover a lot of space at once. So I'd like to use a ton of water to kind of help do that quickly. I'll use that same color just right here. And then here as well. Okay. I'm going to do some dark blue using a color called Payne's Gray here. And I'm just going to paint inside of this, the opening of this, I guess underneath the bridge. So just dropping this rich, beautiful dark blue color. And I'll go ahead and swing it around here. I'm just going to use a wet brush, kind of smooth that color out with water. Start reaching into some green here, dropping that in there as well. So for the water, it's going to be like a mixture of blue and green. Trying to keep it all really watery as I paint. And then in some areas it's reflecting the sky. So it's almost like a very light white color because maybe we're seeing some clouds being reflected. It's just really light. Go back to this blue, drop in little bits of blue, kind of working around these little lily pads. And then there's also just some algae on top of the water, so I'll just drop in some green as well, keeping it watery. Drop in some yellow. Some yellow and some green in these areas with all the algae. If you are a member on Patreon, I have a reference album for all of my patrons who are on the Blooms tier. And I have an album full of reference photos. That's where I found this photo, is in that album. So if you're interested in using the same reference photo, be sure to join me on Patreon and you can find the album. Drop a little more yellow in here. Add just a little more drama. It's also very dry today. I have a window open and the ceiling fan on because it's super hot, so my painting is drying very quickly, which is kind of a fun challenge because I'm like, okay, gotta go quick. You can't overthink it. Okay, over here in the corner, I see a reflection of a bunch of leaves in the water, so I'm just gonna go ahead and drop that in there, let the water kind of take it and bleed that color around. I'm really excited because the sketchbook is getting really close to being finished. I've been working on this one since I think 2020. Yes, I think the first year I used it was in 2020. And my friend Kaya from Dustling and Heart, she makes journals herself. So this is a handmade journal, leather bound. She tears the papers in it herself. It's so beautiful, and I've just loved using it. I have 2 of her journals. This is the first one I ever got. So this one is a mixed media paper, so it's actually not true watercolor paper. It works for watercolor, but it's not necessarily designed for watercolor. I would say it's like a little bit more smooth than a typical watercolor paper, and it also, I find that it dries a little bit more quickly. It's harder to move the color once you put it down, mixed media paper is. However, I still use it quite a bit. Sometimes I use it for drawing. You can use it for markers, pens, pencils, all that. But I also use it quite a bit for watercolor, so it's served me really well. I have like maybe 6 pages left in here. So I'm really motivated. I want to like finish it, and then I thought maybe I'd do a sketchbook tour, a sketchbook journal tour, which I don't even think I've ever done a video like that. I love watching other artists create videos like that, but I don't think I've ever done one. So it's because I'm usually my sketchbooks are kind of, I wouldn't say embarrassing, but they're just maybe kind of like, oh, I wouldn't share that. It's just a lot of practicing and stuff that I don't know why I just don't typically feel super confident to share what's in my sketchbooks. But for this one, I was mentioning in one of my Patreon tutorials recently, I do feel really proud of a lot of the paintings in here, so I will be happy to share a sketchbook tour of this one. But I think kind of what I was saying there, I think it's important to have sketchbooks that are kind of created just, or that you use in that function of just practicing in, nothing you feel like you want to have to reveal to the world. I think that it's really great as an artist to have a space like that where you can just kind of play around, explore, just play with new ideas and practice new techniques and all of that. So, okay, so water is feeling good. I think what I'll do now is I'm going to go ahead and paint some of these little lily pads, which are all just green. I would say they're kind of a bluish green, so I'll mix a little bit of blue, a little bit of green over here on my palette. And they're all going to be kind of a variety of colors. They're not all going to be the exact same shade. But I'm just going to get kind of started with this one shade here. And maybe I'll do 3 or 4 of this color, and then I can mix it up and change my green just a little bit. Okay, so now I'm going to do a mix with a little bit more yellow in it. I maybe could stand to switch to a smaller brush here. Just maybe because this is a little bit more detailed. I think I will actually. Let me see what I got here. I'm going to switch to a size 2 brush. I can do just a little bit more, a little more finesse, I think, in this brush. Also, my hands are probably a little shaky from drinking too much coffee today. Just a little bit. One of my longtime friends, a photographer here in town, her name is Tish, but she came over here this morning and we did a little family photo shoot. And it was just like one of those mornings where it was hilariously like, not bad, but like just the kids were in really bad moods. And I think the photos that we got will probably be really precious because it'll be really real. You know, like the kids were crying and Raphael didn't want to share his toys, and then, you know how kids are. At one point, Raphael bit Alma's finger, and then he needed a timeout, and then he had to apologize. But she got it all. She was taking pictures of all of it. And I'm going to cherish that because it's such a wild, chaotic season of life, and I love it so much. It's very tiring at times, but I love it so much. So that's what we did this morning. But needless to say, there's been a lot of coffee drink today. So okay, so I'm actually going to just add. Let's see. I'm going to add some kind of more of like a true green, a little bit of yellow. Just kind of here in the center, I'm seeing kind of this area where there's some lily pads that are kind of coming up out of the water, or some sort of plant is growing on top of the water. Instead of just floating on the surface, it looks like it's growing upwards a little bit. So I'm going to draw that in, that little detail. Maybe add some dark green underneath it so it looks like there's some height to it. Something like that. I'm looking over at my reference photo and I just kind of keep squinting at it and trying to add some of these little details I see. Over here on the left side, it's starting to get very dark over here. We got all these dark little shadows of leaves here. And then right here along this border, I got, it looks like maybe some ivy or some green plants growing just right here on the edge. So I'm just going to paint that in with just this true green color. This is sap green. I'll probably mix a little bit of yellow into this as well. I always like to kind of mix up my colors. I don't want it to just be kind of one-dimensional. It's nice to have a nice variety of hues and shades of like light and dark. I love to mix up the cool greens and the warm greens. Going to use a little bit of water to kind of smooth out some of those little details there. Add even more dark values here in the water. I'm going to grab more green, dark green here, and I'm going to drop it here along this edge, all the way back into our tunnel. And my tunnel dried pretty light, so I'm going to grab more of this dark shade of blue, a little bit of green, and just layer it on there. I think it needs to go up here as well. Smooth that color out here with a wet brush. Use that damp edge to kind of pull it towards the rest of the water as well. The one downside to paint drying so quickly is a lot of times I'll have these really beautiful little blooms and moments that are kind of happening, but then if it's not dark enough, I kind of have to add another layer, and often I I'm not able to kind of keep those blooms the second time, but it's kind of the nature of it, and it's cool. It's still really fun. You still never know what kind of blooms and, you know, little watery moments you're gonna create, but in order to kind of get the depth that I really like in a painting, a lot of times I do have to kind of cover up moments that are really nice, but that's okay. I'm gonna add some more little yellow lily pads here and there, over here as well. Kind of a yellowy green color here. Kind of more oval shape too. At least the ones that are over here feel like they look a little bit more oval shaped to me, and then as they get down here, they become a little bit more circular. One thing I could try doing here is maybe just doing a negative space lily pad where I add green around the yellow that's already painted here. Maybe I'll do another one right here too. That washi tape is so old, it's like trying to peel up everywhere. I actually really like that detail. I think that looks nice. Okay, and then maybe another one back here. I'm going to use my damp brush to kind of smooth that green out. I don't paint water very often, so this is a fun challenge for me. So I feel like this sketchbook, you know, it's nice because like I said, I try to just, you know, I do try to be intentional with it and to create paintings that, you know, I don't know exactly how to say it. Like, I guess that, like, I do experiment in here, but I try to be really thoughtful about those experiments. So this isn't a style that I would typically do. I don't paint a lot of like landscapes or, you know, water scenes, but yeah, I'm trying to just be really thoughtful about it. I sketched it. I chose a composition I really liked. So in that sense, there is some intentionality behind this one. Okay. I'm going to pause on the water for a moment, and I will paint what I'm seeing over here. So I'm going to start with these kind of tall grasses that I'm seeing here. Just kind of right in here, kind of a mix of some yellowy green. Maybe these are iris that are growing over here. Mix maybe some blue in there in a few places. And then behind those iris, I'm seeing a darker blue-green. So I'm going to try to kind of paint around those iris. Not perfectly, maybe keeping it a little bit on the looser side back here. But just kind of painting around those iris, trying to keep their shape. And we got some kind of trees, maybe like a type of shrub growing back here. Yeah, I don't paint like garden scenes, landscapes, not very often, but it's actually super fun. It's fun to paint something different than what you typically do. It's even more fun when it turns out good. It's not as fun when I'm like, did not nail it. But, you know, there's still some value in painting something you don't like. You can always learn from it. always something to learn from it. I heard Sarah Simon, who's I don't know her in person, but she's a kind of an Instagram pal. But I heard her say once that the only paint that you waste is the paint that you don't use. And I think that that's very beautiful and very true. Anytime you paint, it's still worth it, even if you don't love the end result. So I'm creating some kind of like a vine growing up this stuccoed wall, this little bridge here. Doing kind of a mix of blues and greens for that little plant that's growing there. And then here, there's kind of like this shrubby plant here, so I'm gonna do some kind of horizontal little scratchy lines over here to kind of represent that foliage there. Just underneath that, I'm actually going to grab some dark brown. And I'm going to create some branches back in here. So there's kind of this, yeah, maybe like a tree slash shrub, a tall shrub, a patio tree, something like that. And then I'm going to add just more of that like kind of blue-green back in here behind these branches. I'm going to grab some more dark green here. And I'm going to go in here in some of these little crevices and just add some like super dark green. Add some drama. There's some nice depth back in a few places here. Maybe up there as well. Back behind the trees. Back in those leaves there. That feels natural. I like how that feels. Okay, giving it some thought here. You know, there comes a point, I think, when you're creating a painting that is not, like, this is not a sketched out, traced out, perfect version of the reference photo. And so I think that something that I can make the mistake of doing is referencing it too much, especially when it's a painting that is not, like I said, like a perfect replica or whatever. So I think I'm going to try and be really intentional here as I'm kind of finishing this painting up, to just kind of look at the painting instead of looking at my reference and try and think like, what does this painting need, instead of like, what am I missing from the original? And obviously it's still helpful to kind of look at a few things here and there, but I think that this painting would value from me just kind of like looking at it for what it is, instead of just as the copy of this reference. I don't know if I said that well, but hopefully you understand what I'm trying to express. So I'm just going to add some little green moments here and there to this little sidewalk, kind of creating a little bit more of a shadow there as well. I want to see maybe a little bit more, I think I want to see just a tiny bit more detail here in this area, but I'm trying to think of how I want to go about doing that. I don't want to lose the kind of softness of the water, but I do want to see just a little bit more depth in a few places. So I think what I might try to do is, just in a few places, I'm going to grab a little bit more blue, And actually, before I do that, I'm going to kind of decide where I want to do this. So I think right here, around this kind of corner here, I'm just going to add some water. Just pure water. And I'm going to bring some water, or some blue. And I'm going to drop that blue in the water. And it's going to keep it from looking like too painted on. It'll keep it feeling really soft because of the water that's on my paper. And anywhere where it does look like I just dropped paint, I can kind of take my brush and smooth that out. I'm going to grab some more green here and paint in some more leaves. I think I want to also draw these lines here. Maybe use more of a blue color. Kind of a reflection here of some of these grasses, these iris leaves. Kind of using just kind of that green, murky kind of green color. I'm going to drop more green back in here. I want it to have just a bit more depth in these areas where it dried a little bit lighter than I wanted it to. Maintaining the shapes of some of these little lily pads here. I'm going to drop a little bit here as well. A little bit more of this green, this darker green color. Using a damp brush to smooth it out. So you can see that I use a lot of techniques to kind of get to where I ultimately want to be. You know, especially in painting a style like this, there's some trial and error. Kind of trying new things and trying out different techniques to kind of see what works, what kind of application works to get the effect I'm going for. I didn't practice this one in advance because I wanted to kind of practice it in my sketchbook. So this is practice for me. So I'm doing some little kind of dashes there. Maybe I want to kind of get the look of more of this kind of, what is it? I said it earlier, but not seaweed, but algae. Kind of get that kind of textury look in a few places. Just kind of using this murkyish green color. Okay. So I'm going to do just a few more things down here at the bottom, and then I'm going to paint up here for a little bit. So I'm just going to finish painting a few more green leaves here. Grab some yellow, paint right here. I'm using Naples yellow, which is a more opaque watercolor, so I can kind of paint over the surface of this this darker blue-green color. Just a little bit there. Maybe a little bit right here as well. Okay. Up at the top, We'll do just a little bit here. Let's see. Let's do some more kind of a greenish yellow up here. Keeping it loose here. I don't want to spend too much time on these details here. So we kind of have some tree leaves growing over here. Some branches kind of coming off this way. I think I'll use this larger brush again to do kind of I think I want to do kind of a desaturated green in the background back here. Beyond this, so this is over here at Los Poblanos. That's where I took this photo. Back here is just a big garden and some mature trees in the distance, but we don't need to worry about all of those details, I don't think. So maybe we'll just drop in some of that watery mix. Just some different kind of levels of darkness. There's some light green, dark green, a couple drops of cool green, and yeah, don't want to overthink it too much. Over here, I'll do some dark leaves. So just adding some dark green on top of these little light moments. Over here as well, just a couple little spots with some dark green. Okay, so I'm gonna let this dry for a few minutes. And as it's drying, I'm going to move over to the other page. So I'm going to paint a wisteria branch. This one will be a little bit more simple and quick. This was also taken at Los Poblanos. Okay, so let me see here. Pull up, I have a reference photo for this one as well. So I'm going to get started by painting just a simple branch, kind of this grayish blue color. I'm going to start with a light kind of gray wash over this branch. Drop just a little bit more of a brown along the bottom. Just a little bit of brown, not too much. Kind of want it to lean more gray colored actually. Gonna have this round knot here. I have these smaller stems here, smaller little branches, I should say. Switch to my smaller brush here. Okay. So I'm going to let this dry for a minute. I'm going to come back to it. And now I'm going to paint some purple. So I think I'm just going to do an even layer of purple on all of these little petals here. Just a light purple. Kind of watery. kind of like a light lavender color. Sometimes wisteria looks a little bit more blue. Sometimes it looks more purple. I feel like our season here for wisteria, it's coming to a close. I planted a wisteria about 3 seasons ago, so this is the 3rd season we've had it. Quick water break there. But I was hoping it would bloom this year, but it did not. But I pruned it back quite a bit this year in the spring, so maybe next year, we'll see. I'm going to grab a little bit of pink, just a little bit to add to this mix, to my purple mix here. And I'm going to go back in here and add some little moments of some kind of pinkish purple. I'm letting this one be kind of a loose wisteria here. Not a super detailed painting. Go ahead and do the same thing over here. So I'm kind of just dropping like this darker purple line underneath all of these little petals. And then I'm going to grab some green. We'll do some yellow green. And just down here at the bottom, drop in some kind of little shapes that look similar to the shape of the petals we have. And I'll also draw the stem that color in places where I can see the stem. I'm kind of seeing a yellow-green color. Okay. Now I want to do some smoothing, I think. So I'm just going to use my wet, damp brush. And just using that damp edge to kind of smooth the color out a bit. Like I said, mixed media doesn't really lend itself to a lot of manipulation. Once you kind of put it down, it doesn't really want to move that much. So maybe in a way I'm not actually moving it too much, but I'm just using a little bit of the color that my brush is grabbing and sort of using that color to kind of bleed the two colors or blend them together in a way that feels a little bit more natural, I would say. So yeah, I think that this type of paper does kind of lend itself to a more loose, quick kind of sketchbook style of painting. Like it's not super, super detailed. And I actually really like how this is. I like how this is feeling. It'll be kind of simple. This one has a lot of busyness going on. And then over here, this one will be a little bit more simple. I'm going to drop in some more dark purple moments. Since I leaned over towards pink last time, maybe I'm going to lean more towards blue this time. And just add a few little moments of kind of a blue color there coming through. Maybe some petal or some of these little blooms are kind of showing through in the back behind these ones. Gonna add a little bit more green in here as well, just in a few places. Some more dark purple. More dark purple, just in some of these little crevices. Help give it a little bit more dimension and depth. You can get some serious depth with the purple. I think that, I could be wrong about this, but I think I heard that Winsor Violet is the darkest value of all the Winsor Newton colors. I think Winsor Violet, you can get, it's like the closest to like black. I could totally be wrong about that. Black actually is probably the darkest color there is, but yeah, I think Winsor Violet it's definitely the darkest color I have value-wise. You can get to a very, very dark depth. Okay, just thinking about if there's anything else I want to do for the stem. I feel like it could use a little bit more definition. So I'll just go ahead and go along here. Smooth it out. I want the bottom line. I want the bottom to just have a little bit more depth here. Maybe just some lines kind of go in the length. That looks like a natural look for a branch, doesn't it? Okay, I'm gonna let that dry. I got a lot of little specks of paint on this one while I was painting this one, which is kind of fun. Okay, so let's go ahead and do one of my favorite parts, which is taking off the tape. I don't know why that is so satisfying. Just looks so clean, doesn't it? Put that back on there. I have some pencil markings here that I can erase. Okay, I want to do a little bit more to this wisteria. I think the branch just needs a little bit more detail specifically. So I'm going to add some dark, I'm going to do some like Payne's gray. Still got a little bit of brown in there. Okay, so let's do some detail here. Yeah, I think the bottom side of this branch just needs some drama. I don't usually spend a lot of time painting branches, to be honest. I think branches are maybe one of the more, especially a bare branch, it's kind of one of the more boring painting subjects. You tell me if you disagree. Maybe you love painting branches, but not very interesting in real life or in a painting, but I'm so glad to be seeing all the branches around us blooming with life and color, coming to life. It just makes me realize how much better spring is, just so much better than late winter. Oh my goodness. You kind of get used to it, and you know, I think that those of us who just love nature and love being outside, I learned to appreciate winter. And there's things I really do love about it. I love that you don't have to pull weeds in winter. And I love that sometimes it's just home is the only place that makes sense to be. Just you want to be cozy and warm inside. And I think that there's something really good for our souls in winter. But, oh my goodness, when spring just starts to like explode with life, you just feel it, right? It just feels amazing. Just want to be outside. Everything feels so full of, I don't know, I feel so much more like hopeful and full of possibility. I feel like all areas of my life just seem to kind of improve in spring. Yeah, I just feel motivated to clean. I feel motivated to, yeah, just like pray more. I feel motivated to cook better meals. I don't know, everything just feels more positive in my life. So thanks, spring. Okay, so some of the details I'm kind of working on here. Let me just try to explain. I'm just basically trying to add some depth to the bottom of this stem. I think it needs just a little bit more drama, a little bit more depth. it's all kind of gray, but I think adding those darker values helps to kind of make it just pop just a little bit more. So we have those really light grayish brown colors and really dark as well. Sometimes adding these little like kind of knots and nodules, that helps to give it a little bit more interest, kind of like that. I think that knot right there really helps. Maybe a little tiny stick coming off of that. You see all these little tiny details, you know, in a branch. There's a lot more going on when you look at it a little bit more closely. Okay. All right, so I think that's where I'll stop for today. I hope you enjoyed watching as I painted this sketchbook spread. It was super fun to create, and I will be back again soon with another video. And if you are eager to learn more, watch more painting videos, you can always join me on Patreon, where I create usually at least 2 watercolor and a drawing tutorial every single month. So I will see you again soon. Thanks so much.